Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Before starting my video, if you didn't subscribe my channel yet, please do, and do not forget to turn on notifications as I'm sharing great contents for you all the time. Alright, in this video we're going to improve our domain system eventing method actually. So how the existing system is working. Let's do some investigation in our system. Let's go our domain and entities. For example, let's go to invoices. This is our invoice entity. So we have a create method here, and we are raise domain events when we create an invoice, right? And this domain event does basically update the customer balance. So it does another database operation. So how it's working? Let's go our infrastructure and DB context. This is our overridden save changes method. Once the invoice has been created here, we're just publishing domain events. So it means the invoice has been created and database updated. So because we did save changes right now and we get our result. If it's success, we have a result here. So after save changes has been committed to database, we are publishing this domain events and our handler in our application layer. Let's go to invoice commands, create invoice event handler. It receives the published events and find the customer and update balance and does another save change operation, and it save changes of the customer balance at that time. So what if after first saving changes on invoice creation, what if our database just became down? So the customer update operation will be failed. Then there is a huge problem in our database consistent. Basically, to prevent this one, we have another solution which is called Transactional Outbox Pattern. Basically, once the domain event raised, if we are creating, once the domain event result raised, and if the save changes result is success, we're going to save the domain events in our table, in our database. Then we're going to publish and use it. So if somehow, if this flow interrupted, we're able to go to database and we can get the event information and we can publish it again. So we can keep our DB consistent. So it is really important to keep your database synchronized. Yeah. So to make much more clarified of these things, I'm gonna make a small drawings for you because this is really important one. Alright, first of all, we create an invoice. So let's say invoice create request, and in this request we also have an domain event. We have event here. Perfect. Let's do a save changes. Changes are saved to DB. Alright. Then this method going to publish this event. Publish event. Perfect. what if there is a problem during this flow, and let's say just after saving DB, during publishing this event, what if it's interrupted? So this event is never going to be published, but we have changes on DB, so it is a problem. So what we're going to do is, let's remove everything. So when we do a create invoice request, we're going to go to DB and we're going to create, actually we're going to make an event as well. Let's say event, and this is another database operation. So invoice will be updated and event info will be recorded. Then we're going to publish event using our DB. So if there is an interruption after saving changes of invoice creation operation, so we can reuse this recorded event info. So let's say publish, and there is a handler. This is the handler. We are passing the publish to the handler. If it's failed, let's say, okay, we just send it, but there is a failure, so we can publish again and again until its event has been completed. I'm assuming you understand much more easily with this diagram. Now let's delete everything. Oops, delete everything, close this section, minimize everything, and we can continue to coding. Alright, now let's go to infrastructure layer. Create a folder which is called Outbox and create a class Outbox messages. This is going to be an entity actually, but we are keeping infrastructure because this is infrastructure related entity. So we're going to create this entity in our table, and it is going to keep the ID of the event, and we're going to keep a couple of date times like occurred and processed, and the processed on UTC, and the error can be nullable if nothing happened. So error section will be null anyway, but if we have an error, we're going to set error messages on this section. That's because we're using string, and the type is going to be the name of the event, and the content is if you remember, we're sending some parameters with our domain event. Let's have a quick look. Entities, customers, for example, events, created domain event. So we are sending this record with customer ID. So this section create a string, JSON string format of our event. Yeah. So we're going to keep the actual type of data, type of event, and the value of the event, and we're going to save them all in our database using this table. Okay, so we have constructor, and we have an update method which we're going to use later to update it while we processing our outbox messages. Now let's go to infrastructure section again. Actually, we are already in the infrastructure. Let's open our DB context. Alright, we need to go to FDB context, and we're going to update our published domain events. Now I'm going to replace it with this method, guys. So instead of publishing events, we're just going to create our outbox messages and we're going to save them into DB. And let's do these changes step by step. First of all, I'm going to change the naming because we not doing any publishing things. We're just going to add our messages to change tracker. So I'm gonna make it void, and it's going to be add domain events as outbox messages. First of all, I'm gonna change the variable name. It's going to be outbox messages. Then, as you can see, we're going to create our outbox message object using select. Okay, I'm going to copy this section. Let's Control C. Let's add this section. Enter, Control KD. Alright, so as you can see, once we selected our entities, I create outbox messages and I define step by step I define the step by step our parameters. So the first one is ID, the second one is date time, occur time. So the third one is get time by name. It is, have a look quickly, this is the type of our domain event. The last one is the string JSON stringify object of our domain event. But to serialize this object, we need to give a JSON serialize settings. Yeah, as you can see. But how can I say? We need to actually, I need to add these settings, as you can see here. Let me remove these comments. Okay, we're going to need these serializer settings, but instead of creating this object, so as you can see, we're creating a new object here. Instead of creating this object again and again and again, I just created a static property here, and I can use as much as I want. Alright, so I'm just using this JSON serializer settings here anytime I want. Perfect. So it's done. It's alright. So I have my outbox messages now. Now I'm going to delete this for each because I'm not going to publish it again. I don't need this for each. And the last, we need to add these outbox messages to the change tracker. Let's use add range method here together. Oh, did I delete it extra something? No, it seems alright. Add range. Let's open up. As you can see, we are adding object to the change tracker using this method to DB context. Now all I need to do is giving the outbox messages, and this is a list. We are giving this list to add range method. Perfect. So we still have a problem because we still using this publish events. Now let's delete it. We talk about the negative effects using publishing domain events in our project beginning of this video. So all we need to do is add domain event outbox messages just before save changes, because we're going to use transaction technique to save the actual operation with the events, to save all of them to database in one go. If one of them is going to, if one of them is failed, all transaction going to be failed. Nothing happened. Nothing has been nothing is going to be changed. So we will 100% keep our database in safe side. All right. I can delete this comment now. And also, we don't need anymore our publisher. I can remove this publisher from my DB context. Let's Control K to make it more nice. So what is the problem? Why I'm receiving these warnings? Let's have a look. So we have we still have this publisher. Let's delete it as well because we don't need anymore. Perfect. It seems all good to me. We add our JSON serialized settings as a static. we create our add domain events outbox messages, and we add them all in change tracker, and we add in overrided save changes. Perfect. By the way, I used let me have a look, Newton soft JSON for serialized settings. If you don't have this package in your project, you can just go manage to get package and add it. Alright, now next thing we need to do is add configuration for our table. So let's go to configurations and add a new class. Let's say outbox messages. Just copy and paste. Give me a second. Yep, outbox messages configuration. Add. Perfect. Now I'm going to copy and paste. Oh, I already did this. I'm trying to save some time again. It's gonna take too many time to create all of things. To start over. Alright, so it's going to be internet sealed class. We using identity type configuration, and we give outbox messages. Basically, we gave a name outbox messages here. I'm just thinking, we don't need to give this here, I'm assuming. And we gave a key for outbox message ID. Alright, I did this configuration ages ago. Now I'm going to try without using these two, because it's going to be the EF core must have selected automatically. Alright, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna see what's gonna happen. So, but this section is mandatory. Basically, the content section is going to be varchar max, and it is required because it is going to keep our data as JSON string. Okay, it is mandatory. Let's have a quick look the table section in our DB context. I'm gonna add my outbox messages here. Outbox message, and let's make it outbox messages. Yeah, perfect. The table name is going to be outbox message anyway, because we define the table in here. And let's have a look at the entity itself. So we have an GUID ID. The EF core is going to select the ID automatically as a primary key. Once we do the migration, we're able to see the information. If we have a negative result, we just can go back to configuration and define the table name and the primary key, all of them in one go. Let's try to make a migration now. Let's save everything, and to make this, let's switch your application to architecture API. Let's go click the package manage console, and I'm just waiting to be loaded. Yep, select this section to infrastructure. Let's say add migration, and let's give a name Outbox Pattern. Let's see what's gonna happen now. Hope my container, yeah, they are alive. If your container is not alive, just run your application and close it. It will be run straight away, and you can run your migration after all. Will it succeed? I'm waiting my migration to be done. Alright, the table has been right. Let's have a look. The ID is unique identifier. None of them is nullable, just process on UTC and error. Primary key is the ID. Yeah, the table name is outbox messages. Exactly how I'm thinking. Exactly, this is what I'm thinking. The name is outbox messages recognized by EF core automatically, and the primary key as well. Okay, all we need to do is now update database. Now I'm waiting my package manager console to update my DB. All done. Perfect. I can close all of them now. Save everything. Now I'm going to add Outbox Options class in our infrastructure. Right click on Outbox and add a new class. Let's type here Outbox Options. Perfect. Now I'm going to copy and paste from my previously done project. Control RG. Perfect. So interval in seconds and better, what are those means? So interval in seconds, how frequently we going to use Outbox pattern, and the batch size is just defining every time we run our Outbox pattern how many events will be initialized. So this is going to be our options, and we're going to get those options from app settings JSON section. We're going to define our settings at that point, and we're going to map the outcome with this class. Now let's open our app settings JSON and add the implementation. This is development. Perfect. I'm gonna put a comma up just after this. I'm gonna bring my Outbox settings. So it means my Outbox pattern will be run in every 10 seconds, and every time it runs, it is going to initialize 10 different domain events. Now let's map these settings to our class using option pattern. Now minimize everything, go to infrastructure and to service register. I'm gonna create a new class, new static method, which is called, let's fix this aligning issue, and the name is going to be add background jobs. Alright, so all I need to do is service.configure, and what was the name of it? Outbox options, and we need a configuration. Let's go config, and the name of it, what was the name of it? Outbox. Is that the correct way to getting it? I'm sorry, I just confused. It must be the config.get section. Yep, I just confused a little bit. So we're going to get section of the string k is going to be Outbox. Yeah, this is the correct way, the getting section from app setting JSON and map it to a specified class. Perfect. We have our Outbox options now. Let's add these background jobs in our actual service, because it can be headache if we forget. So let's add services and the config. Perfect. Control KD. Let's save everything. We're going to improve our add background jobs later on. Now we're going to add our actual background jobs in a minute. Okay, let's create a new class in Outbox. Right click, add new class. Alright, I'm gonna make some copy and paste job, guys. Yeah, the name is going to be process Outbox messages jobs. Let's add this. Before continue, let's leave as it is. I'm going to add my background jobs library, which is going to be Quartz. Right click on infrastructure, click manage NuGet packages, and type here Quartz. And here we go, Quartz extension hosting. This is for us. We're going to implement this library in our project. Apply. I think it's almost done. Yep, it's completed. Perfect. Now I'm going to bring everything here and we can go through all of them together one by one. Let's Control C and Control V. Do we have any error? Yeah, we have some error. Okay, are we going to fix them all while we're going through? First of all, we have an attribute which is called this allow concurrency execution. I'm gonna add some note on it. So it prevents how can I say, if we post an event, it can be post multiple events in one time, so it just make sure we're just posting one event in one time. So let's say post one event in one transaction. Yeah, it's better explanation. So it just preventing concurrency execution. That's the thing does for this attribute. Okay, so we add JSON serialize properties again here as a static because we're going to use we're going to need a JSON serialize settings. Just keep top of our definitions. So I add and I publisher. We do going to use publisher, and we do some loggings, and also we need outbox options. That's because I bring my outbox options here, and we need to use app.db context. Let's switch the naming, app.db context, and let's fix these namings. Anything else? Core seems so good. Yeah, all right. So I injected all the modules like publisher, logger, and everything, but these are not using primary constructor. Let's switch them in the primary constructor. Control dot on the naming and use primary constructor, and I would like to keep the fields. That's why I'm just clicking that one. As you can see, I switch it to primary constructor. It's actually I'm really like to use primary constructor. And also do not forget to add your iJob interface, which comes from Quartz. Recently we add the Quartz in our project. Okay, let's continue. So we have a method which comes from iJob. We just implement the interface, and we need to fill that method right now. First of all, we just add a log information, and we are telling our loggings we are beginning to process outbox messages. Then we create a transaction, and we using DB context, comes from our DB context database, begin transaction. What does that mean, guys? The transaction means if you're doing a multiple operation in one go, if one of them is failed, so you're going to roll back all changes, and it keep your consistent your DB, and it's really crucial movement if you're doing a multiple operation in your application. Okay, so we just created a begin transaction async here. All right, then we create a try catch block, and we're going to use that try catch block. Okay, before starting our logic, let's investigate this begin transaction. As you can see, we do something here. We're going to investigate all of them in a couple of minutes later, and we do save changes here, as you can see. So, and we using await transaction commit async. If there is no exception, if there is no failure, all changes with commit, all these changes will be commit using transaction commit async. Normally we use, if you remember, unit of work to commit changes, but in this time we're using transaction, and we define that transaction in a variable, and we're going to use this transaction commit async to approve all changes if there is no error. If there is an error like this, we're catching exception, yeah, we're using rollback async method, and this rollback, just remove these save changes and roll back everything back. It's just reverting back everything. This is how it's working. Yeah, I'm assuming you understand how the transaction section is working. That's why we're calling this pattern transactional outbox pattern. Alright, let's continue the logic what we created here. So we have outbox messages here, just using get outbox message async. So let's have a look. What is that message? What is that method? We just created a private method to get our outbox messages. We're going to have a look later, but just continue. So we have outbox messages in our hands now. Now we're going to iterate all of them, all the outbox messages. For example, you have 5 outbox messages waiting in your database, and you just bring them all here using this method, and we're going to iterate them, and we're going to publish them all. Okay, we're going to use another trackage block inside. Yeah, and we have an exception defined here as a null, because we are using this trackage not to throw an exception. To use that trackage, if there is an exception, we're going to save the exception in our data table. How? Let's continue. So we have, I just created a domain event variable, and we need to deserialize the content comes from our database. If you remember, we created a outbox messages content section, and I told you it's keeping the domain event data as a JSON string. We just make it deserialize using these settings and deserialize object. Yep, and now we have in our hands an domain event. So after we saved our event in DB, we just brought it back and we made it alive. Now our domain event is alive. Okay, if the domain event is null, so we are throwing argument null exception, but I'm going to change it later. Let's put a small note because we have all customized exception in this project. And if it's not null, we're just going to publish using publisher. Yeah, this domain event, and all good, no problem at all. If we have an exception in this try catch, we're going to catch the exception. We're going to log it. You know how we are logging our errors now, and the exception we defined here is going to be filled by count exception. Then we're going to call update outbox messages with DB context, outbox messages and exceptions. If it is a successful operation, the exception will be null, outbox messages is going to be succeed. But if we have an exception, we're going to save the DB with the exception. This is how it's working. Alright, we iterate all of them one by one, and we save everything, we update everything, and we save everything in DB, and we use commit async right now. And do not forget, this save async method going to be called in our overridden save changes. So for example, if this processed background jobs called during the create invoice, so the invoice creation saving changes operation and the domain event saving change operation is going to be occurred in one go. So that's why we're using the commit async here. Alright, all done. Now let's have a look how we receiving outbox messages. So I just create a private async method, and it is going to be I read only outbox message response returning, and I used raw SQL method here because I'm gonna use a couple of special technique to bring it to us. It requires to know a small amount knowledge of using SQL queries. So this is just a basic raw SQL method. So basically we're going to get amount of batch size because the batch size is coming from our option batch size. Here we go. And if you set up, for example, each run needs to be 5 batch, you're only going to get the top 5 one, and we're going to get the ID content. This 2 is going to be enough. This is the table name, and processed on UTC must be null, because if they are processed, it means they all completed. We don't need to publish them. So we're just going to get the processed on UTS parameter is null objects, and we're going to just order by occurred on UTC. And what is that UPD lock? UPD lock means, guys, it just lock all the DB and doesn't allow to anything else rather than this operation, and it keeps safe your DB. That's why we're using transaction and UPD lock in our queries. And the last thing is, we just, once we get everything, we just use a select method and reflect all the data to create an outbox message response. Yeah, and we just giving ID and content. What is that outbox message response? I just created a sealed record, ID and string. I'm using this as a response. Yeah, perfect. And we have update outbox messages method here as well. Let's investigate it, how it's working. There is another method here, and we are sending context, response, and exceptions. So first of all, we're defining an outbox message, yeah, and we are finding the existing outbox messages first. Then basically we go to update method and run this update method. Let's have a look. This is the update method. Yeah, I didn't add any null check here because the outbox messages already saved and ID just came from the DB, and I didn't see any mandatory thing to make a null check. I just use exclamation mark to get rid of the warning. Yep, basically we update our outbox messages and all process is I'm assuming completed in this section. It can be a bit complicated, but if you watch my explanation again and again, probably you will understand. If you struggle, just drop comment below the video. Now I'm going to add the configurations what I done and into our service register section. Let's open our service register and let me bring my settings from my previous project. Okay, if you remember, we add Quartz, right? All we need to do is adding Quartz and adding some settings. Okay, we add Quartz using add Quartz, and we add some options, Quartz options. So actually it says we're going to wait for all jobs to complete, and it is just I think it is about this all of concurrency thing. All right, now I guess we need to add a setup for our jobs. We did everything, but only left, as I mentioned in a couple of seconds, we need to add our options, because we have outbox messages, we have outbox options. We used outbox options in our message jobs, but we didn't define yet how frequent we're going to use and how many batch is going to be used in our process. So I'm going to right click on Outbox and I'm going to add a new class, which is going to be process outbox messages jobs setup. let's save it. Control RG. Now I'm going to bring all details. Now here we go. Okay, what I've done here, I add options. I injected the options to bring my Outbox options from my app settings JSON, and I configure options, Quartz options, and I implement my interface. This is the configure method, comes from configure options. Now all we need to do is fill this method. So basically we give a job name, and this is the process Outbox message jobs. It is using the name of this class, and we're going to give options now. So we add a job for our jobs we just created here. Yeah, so the options is going to be for this class. It means yeah, we are adding options for that class, and the identity is going to be this name. Yeah, so we just defined what the job is in this line, and we're going to give an option for trigger. So this trigger is going to be for this job, and we're going to use a simple schedule, and we are giving the interval in seconds using Outbox options. In this circumstance we gave 10 seconds, and it is going to be repeat forever until obviously our system must be alive, up and running. So all we need to do is add these options to our service register. Alright, let's go down. Okay, all we need to do is adding these options. I'm going to bring these options here as well. Perfect. Now the option setup is initialized for our Outbox pattern, transactional Outbox pattern. Actually, yeah, I know it's quite hard to understand. Now everything is ready. Let's try to use this Outbox pattern, and let's see how it's going to look like. Let's save everything, close all tabs. I'm going to put a breakpoint on DB context, save changes area. Yeah, let's put a breakpoint and switch our application to Taco Compose and run the application. It's been 42 minutes. It's quite a long lesson. I don't want to interrupt this lesson because it's quite long and hard to understand subject. As I mentioned before, if you struggle something, just drop comment below the video. I'm studying too with you as well, guys, so I'm still learning new things, and if you share your struggled areas, I will be happy to go with you. Perfect. Let's click continue. Alright, now I'm going to create an invoice. Okay, we left the invoice inversion. As you can see, every 10 seconds our Quartz is initializing and trying to publish our events, and that's why we're receiving a breakpoint here. I'm going to cancel for a second. Let's click continue. Alright, now I'm going to click version 2 because we forget. Yeah, we forget this as a version 2. Let's try to create an invoice. But first of all, I need a customer, right? Oh my god, it's going to be frustrating. Alright, let's have a look at our customers. Okay, this is an empty balance customer. Let's take this one. Let's copy. And let's go to version 2. Let's create an invoice. Let's say test. This is going to be the customer ID, and I'm going to open a new instance. Yeah, let's open a new page. Let's make it version 1. I'm going to get the products now. I need to add. Alright, great. This is a test purposes error. I just forgot it. Okay, alright. Let's go back. Let's close everything. I just changed my mind. Let's fix everything first. So all we need to do is go back to go back to API controller version 1 invoices. Let's make the invoices version 1. This is the first fix. Perfect. Let's close it. And let's go to application, features, products, what was the other one? Queries, get all products. Oh my god, literally I forgot to remove this failed test purposes field. Let's make it success, return response with the 200. Control C. Alright, let's close it, run the application one more time, and we can test it now. Alright, I'm waiting my application to be built. Come on, come on, come on. It's been 46 minutes. Alright, now let's bring all customer first. I need the customers, and let's bring the all products. I need the product IDs as well. Yeah, now try to create an invoice. I'm gonna use that customer. Let's give this string. Oh, sorry, this is PO. Let's say test PO. Let's use this customer ID. I'm just gonna give just one product. Let's give this product, and let's make it 100 quantity. Alright, before going, guys, I'm just going to put a breakpoint here quickly, and let's execute. Here we go. So let's continue. First of all, I'm going to open my DB. Where is my database? Let's open DB first. I'm waiting my DB to be open. It's gonna take a while, I guess. Come on, DB. It's been 48 minutes and become 50. Alright, let's close it. Perfect. Let's have a look our tables. So we have outbox messages here. Let's view table. As you can see, it is empty, and the invoices section is with just 2 invoices. We are about to create the third one. Let's click continue, F10 and F10. The result has been created. Let's have a look quickly. Let's refresh. Let's refresh. I'm hoping this is the result what I'm expecting. Let's continue. Okay, I didn't finish it, I guess. Okay, let's continue. How many? Yeah, output. This is the thing. It is really hard to use while Quartz trying to publish our changes. I'm gonna cancel it. Let's continue. So this is the invoice we created. As you can see, this is the invoice balance, and it is updated anyway. I'm gonna show you the invoice. We couldn't track it because the Quartz pushing our events every 10 seconds. Maybe we can make it, instead of 10 seconds, maybe we can make it 10 minutes to test it. Let's refresh it. Here we go. This is our test purposes This is our test purposes invoice, and let's have a look Outbox messages. Let's refresh it. As you can see, this is our Outbox messages, and it is occurred at that time. This is the ID, and this is the type invoice created domain event, which is we created an invoice, and this is the content. It is just stored as a JSON string, and we have a process on UTS, and we don't have any error. Okay, now I'm going to try an error and see what's gonna happen now. Alright, let's minimize it. I'm just thinking, how can I get an error on publishing this? Okay, let me have a look. So we have add domain Outbox messages. We are adding Outbox messages and we are saving changes. Okay, I'm thinking, how can I have an error? Let's stop the application first. Let's go to infrastructure and jobs. Can I add an exception here? Yeah, okay. Definitely it's going to be here. So I'm going to throw an exception, and I'm going to get exception messages. Let's throw an exception here. Throw, oops, new exception, just an exception, test exception message. Alright, let's run the Docker compose now. Now I'm going to try another invoice. Let's try to create another invoice. Let's get another customer ID. This is the customer ID, and let's say test POV2, and let's add a product. Let's add a cement. I'm gonna add just 10 cement here. Alright, let's execute now. As you can see, it's been executed. This is the invoice balance. Yeah, it's all completed. But let's have a look at the customer. The customer balance is 13914. Let's execute again. Still 1394, because we have an exception. It's just didn't update it. Let's have a look our messages. Refresh. As you can see, we have an exception here, and this is the test exception message, and now our system trying to publish all the time. Yeah, let's refresh it. Let me have a look quickly. Yeah, we still have an exception. Okay, let's stop the application, remove this message, and run the application again. Let's see what's gonna happen. Just waiting. I'm assuming it is going to update now. Let's get the old customer. Alright, still waiting. Refresh. This is weird. Processed on UTS, it must be null, I'm assuming. Did we a mistake here? Alright, I guess we did a mistake on somewhere else. Let's close here and let's have a look. So we have update outbox messages, right? Data mutees now. Why it's not updating here? Okay, domain event, if it's null, which is not null, we are publishing it. Alright, I'm gonna put a breakpoint here and run the application quickly and see how many outbox messages we have. Maybe okay, we are receiving the process. Okay, let's stop the application. We are trying to receive the process UTS is null, but our process UTS has an date. So while we're saving it, we must do a mistake. Now I'm going to have a look at that. Alright, I found the issue is actually, so let's have a look at this code. So we are doing a try catch, right? So if we are using update outbox messages, it doesn't matter we have an error or not. So basically the exception is becoming null if we don't have any exception, but we fill the outbox messages, so it is updating the process date if it's failed. So all we need to do is, instead of getting process on UTS null, we're going to get, let's try, I'm just gonna try it now, didn't try yet, error is not null. Is that correct? Yeah, if error is not null, it means we have an error, we couldn't publish it, so we're going to, it must be work now. Let me have a look and try it. I'm not quite sure is that correct syntax for SQL not null selection. Let's have a look. If it's not working, we're going to get an error message or exception anyway. Alright, what happened? Let's continue. Okay, let's have a look at the customer row. As you can see, it is updated. Perfect. Let's have a look at our DB viewer now. Let's refresh. Error became null and it is updated. Perfect. It's take a little bit time to find out, but finally I figured that out. So basically this is how the outbox pattern is working. We just create an event and we are saving this event on DB, and this event going to be published in a row, for example every 10 seconds, every 1 minute, or every day, and we're going to be able to select how many events we can publish, and once it's published our handler going to catch it and process the handling domain event. Alright guys, it's a long lesson, it's 58 minutes, probably with the intro and ending it's already been 1 hour. I'm going to finish this lesson here. If you struggle anything or if you have any problem, just drop comment below the video, and if you crush the like button I will be really appreciated. Thanks for watching my videos. See you on next lesson. Bye bye.